Hello, my name is Zach Neal with Potomac Custom Remodeling. I am here to pull a shingle for identification on the Webb's roof here for their insurance claim that they are going through right now. Currently what I'm going to do in this video is walk through the front slopes. It seems like there was missed damage on the front slopes based on the adjuster's report. So what I'm going to go do is walk through and mark out the areas that are wind damaged and explain why it is wind damaged and not the footfall that was originally quoted by the adjuster. Explain what the difference between footfall and wind damage looks like on a laminate architectural shingle as a Hague certified inspector. So let me just turn the camera around here on the front slope here. Front slope of the house. So the back slope is back there. You can actually still kind of see some of the adjuster's markings of the test squares and whatnot. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to come down to this shingle here, and I'm looking here and I see a corner crease. When you lift that up, crease is right at that line there. Right? You see that? That is wind damage. The reason that is not footfall, and I'll show you some evidence of footfall on this roof to show how they are different, but that is a wind crease. Basically what happens on these, as you can see, we have a couple corners in a row that are all unsealed. You see, every single one of these corners you can pick right up. Okay, that is called zippering. However, sometimes when zippering occurs, then what happens is the wind gets underneath the shingle and it causes it to crease just like that. You can see the dark crease line, the missing granules. That is very consistent with a wind damaged shingle or a corner crease shingle. And as you can see, all the corners, that one's sealed pretty tight, but unsealed, unsealed and creased, unsealed, 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 and unsealed. This one is sealed. So again, we have some zippering going on, and what happens is, like I said, when the wind gets under and the wind drives this way, it picks up this corner of the shingle and it bends it back just like that, and it creases it. Okay, you can see the dark line right there. That is a wind damaged shingle. Like I said, once we get to another area, I'll show you some footfall on the roof and what the difference is. I believe there was another one down here. I might be mistaken. Again, loose corner. Crease is starting to develop across the edge. And when you look, all the corners are unsealed. Now, zippering itself isn't wind damage. Zippering can be from, thermal contraction and expansion. It can be from poured sealing, things like that. However, when the shingle creases like that, it is most definitely wind damage and not footfall. So this one, given the fact that there is some creasing starting to develop, I would consider that a wind damage shingle. Same thing as this one. This one's more prominent as far as its crease, but they both have the sign of that creasing. Okay, now we move over onto this other front slope. Now, again, some of the adjuster's markings are still here from their test square. I look at this slope and I see, wow, a very prominent wind crease right across the corner here, and it's in multiple different lines and curved, which would lead me to believe that this happened with a wind event with different strengths of wind hitting this shingle. Because if it were more straight lined, same thing with the other ones, they had a curvature to the line and multiple crease lines to it. You can see, you bend that right there, it creases right at that line. See? Right at that line. Curved, multiple lines. Different strengths of wind cause that. If this was kicked, or this was foot traffic or something like that, it would be a straight line and it would be completely creased over and it wouldn't be curved like that. That is footfall on a shingle such as this. You wouldn't see that. To show you some evidence of footfall, because there is footfall on this roof, however, it's not on the front slope. I pointed this out to the adjuster, or the inspector, excuse me. I would consider this footfall, right? Look, that was obviously kicked. It's a very rigid line and it broke the shingle. That's footfall. Somebody was walking up this slope, they caught the corner, boop, they kicked it, and it broke in a straight line, just like that. That's footfall, right? There was another one over here. It was a missing corner. I might not be able to find it, but we have something similar over here. This, again, I would classify as footfall. Somebody kicked the shingle and it tore. You can see a very rigid tear, almost straight line tear. It broke consistently in one soft line. That's not consistent with wind. That's consistent with footfall. That is footfall, right? That's much different than the creases we have up here. These creases we have right here, curved lines, right? Curved lines, creased. You can see even the applique has become unsealed and creased as well across the top. Look at that. But the corner crease is what started that. And again, we come over here to the front slope. Same thing. Curved crease lines, multiple different lines of creasing, showing different strengths of wind, and it creases right at that corner. Evidence of footfall would show very differently. It would show very rigid lines, lines that were kicked, right? It would be a very sudden piece of damage. Those pieces of damage up there, you can tell, had some nuance to them from the wind damage that occurred, right? So another case of footfall we have right here, corner of a shingle missing right here. That corner is missing. Either that was cut accidentally during installation or somebody kicked that accidentally, right? Footfall does not crease a shingle in the pattern that has taken place on these shingles in the front, right? Footfall causes shingles to break. It causes shingles to go missing, especially small corner pieces, and it causes shingles, if they do cause a crease, it would be very sudden, very rigid lines that obviously look like it was done in one instant. Whereas these wind damaged shingles here, right there, and over here on top of the garage, you can tell those shingles, it was not a sudden kick or a sudden motion that caused that damage. This was a wind event that you can see very clearly happened with different strengths of winds. It was probably one windstorm that came through, different levels of wind, and it just caught the shingle multiple times and creased it in multiple different places. That's consistent with wind damage, okay? Not consistent with footfall. Like I said, I've already showed you multiple different places of footfall on this roof, same conditions, much different looking damages when it is footfall compared to a wind crease. So again, my name is Zach Neal. I am now going to pull a shingle for identification. I'm going to pull one of the damaged shingles that I have found, and we'll send that over to get identified and then send in to you to see if the shingle is still made. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you very much. Have a great day.